Welcome to Season 2 of the Parkinson's podcast Unfiltered, with hosts Heather Kennedy and Kat Hill, brought to you by the Davis Phinney Foundation. Heather is originally from New York and was diagnosed with young-onset Parkinson's in 2011 when she was 40. Kat is originally from a small town in California and was diagnosed in 2015 when she was 48. Heather and Kat have been friends since they met at the World Parkinson Congress in 2019. In this season, Heather and Kat will be joined by Chris Kruger, a Davis Phinney Foundation staff member who was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2020 when he was 37. In each episode this season, Heather and Kat will dive deep into the raw emotion and realities of living with Parkinson's as they share stories and discuss questions they've received from people in the Parkinson's community. If you have a question to ask or story to share, please visit dpf.org/unfiltered. That's dpf.org/unfiltered.
Pat wrote in, "I'm sorry I missed your earlier podcast on apathy, but listening to it today gave me some ideas. My husband and I are both 78. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's 20 years ago. He recently moved into an assisted living facility, and I feel his apathy and depression are major contributors to his current disability. Movement-wise, he freezes a lot, so mobility is a problem, along with some cognitive changes. It's really complicated. He now spends most of his time sleeping and watching TV. He's been through many sessions of PT, OT, and speech therapy. But when the therapy ended, there was no follow-up. He started these programs early on after diagnosis, and the lack of follow-through, it just didn't really change his functional ability early on. Now meds and DBS aren't doing much either, and he's not so interested in therapies. It's so sad to watch someone sit on the edge of life. I also feel that we come from a generation where people weren't open about mental health problems and didn't seek support. Hopefully, greater acceptance of mental health will impact the Parkinson's community. I should also add that we live in New Mexico, and it's a bit of a healthcare desert. The movement disorder specialist who's been with us from the beginning is retiring this month. We tried a psychiatrist last year, but after the first visit, she disappeared for several months, and then when she surfaced, she didn't seem too engaged. So anyway, thanks for all your insights and for sharing your perspective. I hope more people realize that sharing feelings and insights are important in Parkinson's. It's not all physical. Pat.
Wow. Yeah, this is a biggie, and this is important. It's hard. I am in the process of feeling more and more on the sidelines, and I'm feeling more and more on the sidelines because I can't keep up with the Kat of the past. The Kat of the past had the energy and the intention to go fast and have lots of activities every day and drive to things and keep up with a lot of people. And I'm trying very, very hard to not get lost in the sadness of the pulling back, because it does feel like a loss. Having said that, one of the greatest gifts in my life is hanging out and having contact with a group of women that I call like my older sisters. These are my watercolor sisters that are in their 60s and 70s, who are also in the process of their lives feeling smaller for a number of reasons. And I'm realizing that this is a process that many of us go through as we age and as we struggle with disease. I am trying to remember that though I am pulling back and I am observing more, that there are some things that I can do in my space, in my house, in my apartment, that I can stay engaged with. I can make a phone call every day. I can send a voice text to my children. Maybe it takes me 6 weeks to do what I used to do in 2 days, but I still am trying to tackle things that bring me joy, like trying to learn a new way of doing a painting. And I'm not quite as excited about it as I used to be, but I'm plugging away at it and still trying to stay engaged. I don't know that we have an exact answer for you, listener. But what I want to say is I'm guessing there's something that your husband wants to do. And is there a way that perhaps in his room or in his space that you could bring a little of that in without an overwhelming goal? I don't know, Heather, your thoughts?
There is no language for depression, for apathy. Men get mad. At least that's what I've noticed. The dominant culture tells them to do. Men don't get sad and cry and feel helpless and sit still. Men get busy. They pull themselves up by their bootstraps, right? Bullshit. Go ahead and beep that out. Bullshit. Let's say this. He may not know he's apathetic. He may not know that he's angry or depressed or whatever's coming out for him. It may be bringing up all kinds of things. Illness brings up familiar patterning that we're not used to dealing with. It brings up romance versus like when your caregiver happens to be your former lover, but it's still your lover, etc. That's tough stuff to find a language for. And because of that, he might be feeling even worse. What I recommend is touch him a lot. Make sure he gets touched, massage. Make sure he's around a lot of people, or at least is invited to be part of. Put him in situations that aren't super crowded, but that have opportunity to interact frequently. That's really important. Chris, what do you want to add to that?
I want to share some of my experience about being touched, actually. I actually have a little bit of a challenge with this, and it might relate to some of the observations you were making about just expected behavior from men. I'm not sure, but I don't want to turn this into a conversation on me, but I want to just observe that sometimes if someone touches me while I'm experiencing a lot of symptoms, it can be really unsettling for me. It's like another thing, another input I have to manage. It's not in my control. And so that can be hard. So I just want to draw attention to the idea that you might want to make sure that the touch you deliver to someone, regardless of if they're your partner or not, is helpful to them, and try to communicate about that however you can. It may not always be the same. It may not always be the same kind of physical interaction that is helpful to somebody. So it's just something else you have to attend to. I recognize that I'm saying something that's introducing another layer of complication, but I just think it's an important nuance.
I think a conversation is really important about it together, and hard, and another thing to do as a care partner. And I understand the burden with that as you're trying to navigate what's going to work. But maybe asking him, what are some things that you miss doing? What are some things, what is one thing even that maybe we could do to engage? Could we invite Bill and Sue over to play cards one night? How would that feel to you? Or how would it feel to join in the assisted living's music group? Little things, not ask him to deliver a big, long plan, but take it a thing at a time. It might be some trial and error.
Can I mention, Chris brought up a huge point. When I'm off, I'm claustrophobic. I can't breathe. I'm going into sympathetic nervous system instead of parasympathetic. So someone comes at me to hug me or hold me, I'm going to push them away. That is a physical response, an automatic response. I'm not thinking I don't want to touch them. I'm thinking, I can't breathe. It's a picture person drowning. That is how bad my off times are. So thank you for bringing that up. It needs to be reciprocal. And Kat, thank you for mentioning that. It needs to be something that we have a conversation about. I really appreciate it.
Or maybe even a hand signal that you agree upon.
Excellent idea.
If you're having that simple system, a hands up or a covering my eyes, or I'm touching my nose, whatever you decide on. Because I tend to be a hugger, right? I'm the touchy-feely, and I can really respect if my kids don't want to hug or it's not a good time. Just saying, can we have a hand signal if you're struggling with that? It takes extra steps, and for that I am sorry, but I do think it's worth it. In my experience with my partner, it has been worth it to have those conversations so that he understands where I am, and that I want him to keep engaging in those things. By no means do I expect him to stop his living because I'm pulling back. I'm responsible for how I'm pulling back in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I want to also say that while it's true that people may not necessarily always want a touch, it's also true for me personally, and I think for most people, that there is power in it, and it does help me often. So I don't want to undercut the importance of Heather's observation that physical connection is important.
Yeah. So let's touch base a little about this healthcare desert that you described. I think that's a real issue. It's kind of the elephant in the room, right? So normally I might tell somebody to reach out right away to their movement disorder specialist and their providers to talk about, are there other tools that could be used, whether they're medicine, whether they're seeing a counselor, whether you could plug in with a support group. And those may or may not be available in your area. I do have a question about if you're in an assisted living setting, are there resources there that perhaps could be utilized either for you or your partner with Parkinson's? But don't give up trying. If you have a primary care, if you can have a consult, if you can even do a remote visit on a computer to talk to somebody about if there's some tools that you can use. But it's a real crisis in this country, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. So we're going to need to resource ourselves and who's directly around us. So I do not want to minimize the enormity of that challenge, listener, and I'm really sorry. And there are many struggling in healthcare deserts right now.
It's hard to be around Parkinson's. It is hard to be around someone who's depressed or apathetic or who doesn't really want to enjoy things. And demoralization happens a lot in public because people don't know what they're looking at. Davis Phinney Foundation does a lot to try to educate and inform without saying, don't be silly, this is Parkinson's, this is easy. It's complicated. When we look at people, we always know what they're doing, or do they need to wear a t-shirt? Like, I'm neurodivergent, punk. Or what are you looking at, Not drunk, it's Parkinson's. I was just really ironic because I don't drink.
Yeah. And Heather, that's a great point. Staying for this lovely care partner, it's important that you're getting support and doing what you need to do to take care of you so that you can care for and take care of your person with Parkinson's. So don't minimize that. The Davis Phinney Foundation has lots of resources. There's a lot of digital online. There's also stuff at libraries that you can check out. But there are support groups. And I suspect, I'm hoping that the assisted living facility might have some resources for you.
I just want to plug the Care Partner Meetup, which might be helpful to Pat, and also the Living with Parkinson's meetup, which, maybe that might be helpful if your husband, Pat, might be interested in joining us and signing up to attend our meetups, and that might be something to consider. You can find the information about that on the Davis Phinney Foundation website, dpf.org. You can find our meetups there.
All right, Chris, what else do we got?
We received a question from E.T., and they asked us to identify them by their initials. E.T. wrote in and said, I've experienced not being able to turn over in bed. I felt like I was Velcroed to the bed, and thankfully this has passed, but it was really challenging. Have either of you experienced this?
Only every night.
Oh, yeah. Heather, dive into that one.
You may feel like you're in quicksand, that the bed is actually trying to envelop you. I recommend a firm mattress. I recommend using inertia, rolling back and forth, if you can start that process. I recommend a bed jet or another that does a lift. Sometimes as it's lifting, I'll stop it and put it back down, push against it. So it gives me the feeling like I'm pushing myself up. Also, you have these straps you can attach to either your ceiling wall or bed and pull yourself up. There are a few ideas. What about you guys?
Yeah, I get stuck under things often. Like if I have too much stuff in my bed, like pillows or blankets. So I'm really careful to have lighter weight things that I can move. I try to get cozy and have things close by so I don't have to move far to get up or get out too. So I don't get too far centered in the bed.
I don't want to go too far from E.T.'s question, but I have a little stretchy blanket. It's very light, like Kat said. It's a little bit stretchy though, so I can kind of wrap my foot in it and push against it because it gives me a little stretch. That seems to help a lot because I guess maybe my I don't know, my body seems to think it's doing what it wants to do, even if I'm not moving, so I can sleep a little better if I'm in this little stretchy blanket.
Is it a circle?
No, it's just a really oversized thing. Almost feels like a little elastic band even, like you'd use to stretch.
I think we kind of hit the nail on the head that there's some physical things that happen that make it really difficult to sleep and then move in our sleep. And then the other part that really impacts our sleep is our brain and the overthinking and some of the anxious thoughts and the cycle of worry. I spend a lot of time trying to not get cramped in the middle of the night or those leg cramps. So, trying to prevent my toes from pointing just the right way and then worrying about if I fall asleep or my toes going to go the right way and then am I going to wake up in a cramp? And so I think sleep is a challenge for many, many of us with Parkinson's disease for kind of that whole host of reasons. So E.T., I hope we answered some of it and maybe get you some tools or at least normalized that you're in good company and that we're thinking about you.
I'm also glad to reiterate that this is something that has been less of an impact on ET lately, but it's a good topic to bring up because a lot of people really struggle with this and it can be really lonely. And when you're in the middle of the night trying to sleep and you can't get out of bed and you want to get to the thing in your day, Well, let's go on to the next question we received. We received an anonymous question from someone that is actually asking us about a webinar that the Davis Phinney Foundation held in May. This webinar was about exercise and Parkinson's and sort of latest research about it. And in that webinar, Dr. Daniel Korkos shared some recommendations about a protocol that you could use to exercise. The question that came in was, how do I exercise when my mobility is really limited? I'm in a wheelchair, or maybe if I need a walker, what can I do?
You know, the muscles that can move and that you can control well and safely, you can get moving. That's if you've got it and you can use it, move it. There's some things as simply you can do as when you're seated, use your arms and do up and down, roll your shoulders, shrug your shoulders, move your head around, keep things moving and mobile. Exercise does not always need to look like you're at a CrossFit gym, jumping up and down on things, swinging from the overhead. So don't let the idea of a 60-minute cardio workout put you off.
You know, I get inspiration from all sources, but I have to say, one person has inspired me, well, actually a few. Darby Schlosser and another one is Christine Meldrum. Christine Meldrum has a book. And, you know, when it first came out, I thought, oh no, another exercise book. Just what we need. But actually, I've tried her plan and it works for me right now. So find the thing that works for you. If you can afford it, try to get a trainer, physical therapist. And there are so many things you can access.
There's also books at the library. And if you don't like one that you read, take it back in. Find another one. Lord, goodness knows there are hundreds and hundreds of people out there. Really, the exercise that is right for you is the one that you'll do again. There's not a wrong, really, exercise. What do you think, Chris?
I'm just thinking about chair yoga right now because I know that's a hugely helpful way to move for people that maybe are sort of, for whatever reason, whether you're in a wheelchair or you just aren't stable enough on a given day to be moving around on your feet. You know, chair yoga is a nice option for some people.
Yes. Make sure that you have extra chair to hold on to.
Exactly. And I know folks that go between the two. On an off day, they might do something seated that is sort of their workout. And on an on day where they're feeling less balance challenged or mobility challenged, they'll do something with a little bit more standing up and activity. So I just think all of us, Parkinson's or not, we got to move.
Cat's right. And I want to second that because you don't have to make it such a big deal. Don't think of it like I have to go work out and make it this big event where you have, the queen and her veil and you look good and you sound good and you have the cute tights on and you go to the gym. No. Find a way to work out in your home if you can.
So we received another question. This question came in from Mimi. Mimi said, I listened to the episode about overcoming creative barriers, and I was wondering if you know about the Haiku for Parkinson's program. This is a year-long program. It was involved a poet who is a person living with Parkinson's, and Mimi notes that this was easy and fulfilling, and writing haiku has helped me, this is Mimi saying, writing haiku has helped me to express what it's like living with Parkinson's, and it's helped me really deal with it better. So what do you think? Poetry good for you?
Right on for jumping in and trying it. I think trying things, we don't know if it's going to resonate with us, but jumping in and trying and finding something that works is awesome. For me, watercolor painting is something I'm really trying to get back to because that's been a really meditative process that slows me down, anchors my mind, anchors my thoughts, and I've missed it. I did it a lot for the first 7-8 years of my journey. And I've not been doing it as much. And I'd like to get back to it. I miss that calm space. So while I have not specifically tried haiku, I love bringing up all the options. What have you found for you guys that has helped?
Can I mention one other thing about, just mentioned painting? The biggest thing that people say, or the most frequent reply that I get is, I can't paint, or I can't draw, or I can't go to do theater, I can't write. No. Get involved in the process. It's not performative. It's not about giving it to someone else or putting it on a wall in a museum and being a painter or an author. Don't be so big with it. Finger paint. Roll around and paint. Have some fun with the process. Heaps. That's what we're getting at.
Yeah, it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same message as about exercise, right? I mean, it's do what moves you, so to speak, and try new things when something isn't going well for you. So I would say it's not just maybe it's not poetry for you. Maybe it's just journaling. Maybe it's writing a letter to somebody that you never even send, or maybe you do send it. It's up to you. For me, I actually, I don't talk about this very often, but I did an MFA in creative writing, and people are always asking me, what are you working on? And that's a hard question. Of those of us who write, it's like, you don't really want that question. But I don't actually do much of that sort of creative writing now, but I do write all the time for work. And it's related to that. It's a process thing, like was just mentioned. It's not so much about what I'm producing. It's the act, and it's the meditation element of getting into the flow of writing that really is what I love. And so I'm really grateful to be able to do that as a part of what I do for work, although I do sort of wish I could write poetry and fiction still more regularly. But I don't feel like it's a big loss for me that I'm not doing that. I'm glad to be able to write at all. It is an active part of my life.
Yeah. I never thought I'd be able to paint. Never in a million years. And for me, it's just what Heather said. I'm not painting to give anything away. I paint in a sketchbook journal that goes on a shelf, and I don't ever tear it out. Even as horrible as it is, I might collage something over it, but it's the process of doing it that I like, not the product necessarily.
Thanks, Mimi, for sharing that, because this is an idea as much as it was a question. And thanks for recommending that people explore the Haiku for Parkinson's program at the Haiku Foundation. Thanks for that. Also, I just want to plug again that you can send your questions to us at dpf.org/unfiltered, dpf.org/unfiltered. We try to get to everything as quickly as we can.
And they start very interesting conversations, which we never actually answer, but we do give our 2 cents or share what works or what didn't work for us in the hopes that it will help you. If it doesn't, you have more to say about it, please write us.
Please write us.
We're interested to hear what you have to say.
We are, and we really appreciate you listening.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Parkinson's Podcast Unfiltered. Remember, if you'd like to send a question to Heather and Kat, you can do so by visiting dpf.org/unfiltered. That's dpf.org/unfiltered. This content includes information, insights, and opinions from our Parkinson's community. The views expressed are those of individual participants and do not constitute medical advice. This content is not intended to substitute for the guidance, advice, or recommendations of your personal healthcare providers.